We are all aware of witch farms and raid farms. Back in the older times, witch farms were the most common way of obtaining redstone in large quantities due to it being fully automatic and decently fast. Nowadays, raid farms pull in about thousands of redstone dust every hour, fueling many technical servers. Many servers rely on them, and their ease to make nowadays is nothing short of way too easy. Some people may see them as overpowered with the production of essentially infinite emeralds, gunpowders, totems, and of course, sticks. Sorry, of course, it's redstone. Some of the newer raid farms are producing upwards of 33,000 redstone per hour, which is insane just by itself. Now, personally, having designed my own raid farm and seen and ran some of the other raid farms, they are definitely way too powerful. Does this mean I'll stop using them? No. But for those who aren't using them and need redstone fully automatically, there's been a new type of farm going around that is much more balanced in the sense of effort put into reward output. This is to say, this farm has been around since like 14, but we're gonna ignore that. Of course, I'm talking about here with the village farms. There are Strones which produce about 3,000 dust an hour, and Elmango and Method which produced at about 20,000 dust an hour. It was Strome's video that made me want to design my own, but it was Elmango's video which I got the idea of loading and unloading villagers. A few things with this farm is it'll probably take about a week for some person who's better at redstone than me to make it obsolete, and this farm is kind of a bitch to make and run, but I'll save that for later. First, I want to go over why I chose the end. It was simple. I had no urge to deal with portal linking, but I realized end gateways could sometimes be more of a bitch than nether portals. Adding on to it is I got some of the ideas on how to make it from void trading halls. One of the first problems I ran into in making this farm is, for whatever fucking reason, it's probably just my game though, is carpet bots just don't work with this farm due to its weird interaction with gateways. For some reason, it going from main end island to outer end island makes it so the bot doesn't load the area, and to be honest, I have no clue why it does that. So the way I tested was leaving my account running while I was at school, meaning the longest test I was able to run is about 20 hours, so I can either confirm or deny how long it will actually run, so keep that in mind. The second problem that you'll run into is storage. Since this thing constantly gets loaded and unloaded, it makes making a storage that doesn't shit itself significantly harder to make. Box layers don't like being unloaded, so it very well can fuck up the farm, but what I have should probably be fine for people who only want redstone. The fourth problem is, well, its size. It's a massive boy, but the reason is decently simple. Not all end gateways generate the same. The place at which they generate inside a chunk at the outer end islands is seemingly random, so you may have to modify the design a bit to get it to work for you. I'll explain more about this later in the video. The final problem is villagers. The farm itself gets bad omen only using one villager, but the main rate of the farm is directly linked to two things: the number of villagers and the day-night cycle. For villagers, the more the merrier. It directly corresponds to the amount of redstone you get at the sacrifice EMS PT. The second point is being the day-night cycle. Villagers will only gift items when they are supposed to be awake. If you play single player, you're kinda fucked unless you use carpet bots to skip the night, and the same sort of thing applies to servers. Basically, have a bot that sleeps, it heavily increases your yields. I will now speedrun the mechanics on how this farm works because, fuck, I don't know. First, the raid started by using pufferfish detection and sending a signal to the start of the farm. Razor drops down and hopes that one is the captain will start the raid. There's raider offset from the rest to ensure that you actually contribute to the raid. Raiders spawn farther than 97 blocks away from farm and only accept the first two, and sometimes the third uses gold protection technology. After spawning the other raiders and the raid concluding, it drops down the raiders and collects them in minecarts and put in a silo later to give bad omen to repeat the process. The players then put within 5 blocks of brick or villager and gets items about every 30 seconds and sent through the gateway to refresh. After 65 times, or about 45 minutes, it is then sent back to the villager silo thing to repeat the process. A few things before building is that this is very much directional. The gateways have some weird and wacky mechanics on how they decide where to throw the players, so I wouldn't mess too much with it. Second is the villager and the spawning platforms have to be aligned with how they are to a chunk to ensure that the raids actually spawn. The player has to be within 2 chunks of the village chunk when refreshing the bad omen, and doesn't matter for actually gifting. Another thing is when you slap that reset button, make sure the hopper clock isn't on when you start the farm, and you place yourself in the villager brick side when you start it. To get out to the other end island, wear leather boots and walk through the gateway. In regards of getting the villagers set and in their cage, watch Strome's video and just do that. I have no urge of explaining what already exists, so yeah. There's also a command block in the E chest that spawns clerics with only their first trait unlocked, so have fun with that.